Hey guys, I finally finished my homework at 1:40, so I'm just gonna make a random philosophy video. It's kind of convenient because I have a TOK Theory of Knowledge class essay due as my internal assessment next class, which is tomorrow. So I'd appreciate it if you critique my essay, which I'll read out loud. Anyways, the question is, to what extent do we need evidence to support our beliefs in the different areas of knowledge? And these areas of knowledge are mathematics, natural sciences, ethics, history, art, and language. But I'm comparing only mathematics, natural sciences, and ethics. So I'll start reading now. What is evidence, and to whom are we referring to when we say our beliefs? For the purpose of this essay, I shall denote our beliefs in reference to the whole of human reasoning. To the proponents of the natural sciences, evidence is the empirical study of the real world, while to the religious, it is the miracles and experiences with gods or God. As a result, these two radically opposing groups are rarely able to reach an agreement, as they have incompatible definitions of the same word, with further disagreement among themselves. In order to be clear in my denotion of evidence, I shall denote it as any means of reasoning in which a belief can be tested in a strictly unarbitrary manner. This is because for every question of knowledge there is a truth, and if evidence may be as arbitrary as ethics, it is a sure sign that this truth may never be reached, or if the truth exists at all. In order to answer this question, I must first define coinages of the human mind. It is defined as what we can have meaning, or what can have meaning in our minds alone, and represents no physical phenomena. For example, we do not see right or wrong walking about the cosmos, which themselves are made of unarbitrary laws explored through mathematics. Of course not. Ethics exists only in our limited imaginations. Knowledge is a belief which has evidential justification and acceptance among societies. Thus, to be clear, while some areas of knowledge require evidence to a high extent, such as mathematics and the natural sciences, those like ethics do not. To what extent is mathematics a belief, or if it is not, is support even applicable? Mathematics is inherently a belief. When we calculate the sum or product of two numbers, we interpret the results through symbolic representations of which is then used to denote a physical or real thing. Math is thus composed of three portions: the axiom, the logical relationship between axioms, and the real-world application. Each of these portions require different extents of evidence. The axiom is the inherent or implied knowledge which all humans possess. While people can argue that humans do not have implied knowledge, it is seen through tests that children do not need to be taught to count. The language of mathematics originated when primitive humans first began to assign communicative values to these concepts, just as they had done for an apple or a tree. While the words connected to these inherent concepts must be taught, the concept itself is universal. Therefore, for this portion of mathematics, evidence is not required in the slightest, because it is a concept derived directly from nature. It is arguable that nature itself is the evidence for an axiom, but that is rhetorical and implied. Everything must be based on nature because everything that exists is by definition a part of nature. Both the logical relationships between axioms and the application of mathematics rely on total evidence. To be clear, I denote logical relationship between axioms as the function of the axiom, such as multiplication, division, etc. When I multiply two numbers, the product is a single unambiguous answer. It relies on total evidence because each step is justified by a previous step, namely the axioms. This truth can be tested by applying it to the real world. A pumpkin patch of 5 rows of pumpkins, each with 4 columns, will always yield a total of 20 pumpkins. It can be tested repeatedly for any situation and get the same results. To what extent are the natural sciences based on the evidence? The natural sciences must rely on perceptive and mathematical evidence because they are the only methods in which humans may understand the physical universe. A science which studies nature must be based on nature, and because of this, belief in the physical sciences must make full use of its evidence. The natural sciences rely strongly on perceptive evidence, the results of repeated testing. In biology, all conclusions are based on the premise that multiple tests yield similar results. This justified conclusion may then be generally accepted as true and considered knowledge for that field. The knowledge that humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 2 of which, the X and Y, are sex chromosomes, have been confirmed through observations made using electron microscopes and gene mapping. Organizations like the Human Genome Project rely solely on the evidence from these objective instruments to create a conclusion which, when generally accepted by a population, becomes knowledge of biology. The natural sciences rely on mathematical evidence to a very high extent. To calculate the near exact age of the universe, a physicist uses instruments to track the redshifts in the light from distant galaxies, and using math can calculate the moment in which the light began to travel. Likewise, if a physicist were to merely calculate the time from the Earth to the Moon, his conclusion would be based on mathematical evidence, by inferring the unknown from the known. To what extent is ethics incompatible with evidence? Ethics is in general not based on evidence, the products of repeated testing. While mathematics and natural sciences are unambiguous beliefs based on an existing truth, there are no existing truths in ethics as we know it. To be clear, I denote existing to be an answerable question, or one which has an attribute relying on the physical world. It could be argued that the only truth of ethics as we know it is that it is a necessary illusion. When we look at what is right or wrong, in historical events such as the Crusades, the Civil Rights Movement, and the modern debates over homosexuality, we find that answers pertaining to ethics in these topics are ambiguous and has no truth foundation. The answer exists only in our minds like a dream. Evidence is unambiguous because for every physical question there is an answer. In the case of ethics, however, this physical question does not exist. Therefore, the human mind is set up with the illusion without the presence of testable justification. In the ethics of religion, is there evidence to why we should or should not kill other than our illusory, emotive desires? Religions such as Christianity and Islam permits killing over adultery, honor, and such minuscule things such as working on the Sabbath day. Can there be evidence for why we should kill someone who works on the Sabbath day? No, of course not. This ethical issue is derived from a conditioned faith. The evidence is inapplicable. As I had stated, evidence is unambiguous. Yet modern religion no longer believes in these barbaric concepts. The fact that we no longer kill people over such trivial matters as the Sabbath shows that ethics is ambiguous, an attribute which means that ethics is not derived from an existing truth. As evidence is a test of existing truths, there does not need to be evidence to support ethical beliefs of which existing truths does not exist. Ethical issues, however, are not totally void of evidence. In the words of Carl Sagan, we long to be here for a purpose, even though despite much self-deception, none is evident. Through the evidence of the natural sciences, humans derived the belief of nihilism in which life and ethics itself is an illusion. All of our perceptive evidence and reasoning has shown that the universe does not conform to our wants and desires. We are only observers. As a result, we have derived one ethical truth, that existence is purposeless. Evidence takes the attributes of a universe of physical laws which does not care whether we kill or the color of our skin. It is neutral. The universe itself is the evidence. To summarize, while the ethics of right or wrong, good or evil, should to or ought to, may not require evidence, the ethics of universal neutrality does, and is justified repeatedly through the evidence found by science and mathematics. As I have discussed, the natural sciences and mathematics rely heavily on evidence while ethics do not. The main reason is the extent to which each of the areas of knowledge rely on the physical universe. The higher basis on the real world, the more evidence we have to justify our beliefs. Often, however, evidence is misused to generalize everything of that type. This is called the anything justifies anything logical fallacy. For example, when a child sees a snowflake falling from the sky, he or she automatically assumes all snowflakes to have the same shape. This is why evidence in the natural sciences are strictly limited to represent only what is being tested, as to avoid these generalizations. This error is limited when there is more evidence, which is why evidence is very important in supporting our beliefs. And ethics, which is not based on the real world, rather the world of human thought, is historically fallacious in explaining physical phenomena. The story of the three Aborigines is a perfect example of the extent to which evidence is important in determining the truth. It tells of three travelers who discovered a thermometer but didn't know what it did. The two travelers who based their conclusions on a physical premise, saying that the thermometer functions based on night and day, were closer to the truth than the one who based it on imagination. Therefore, it is to a high extent that in order to obtain the truth, the areas of knowledge must be strongly justified using evidence. And this is my essay here. Um, I think it's okay, but I need some critiques. On the last practice essay I got like a C plus, even though I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, IB stuff is sort of impossible. Well, not impossible, but anyways, I'd like some suggestions, please. Thank you, and bye.